I'm Harley-McKeown. I'm a founding editor at Project Glitch and a freelance journalist and editor. Today I've got some very exciting people with me. We've got Jaime Bosch, who's the CEO and co-founder of Voicemod, an app which has already had 40 million plus downloads, been going for nearly a decade. And Facey of Audiomob, which is changing the way advertising is done in games. But yeah, I'm going to hand over to them to sort of like talk a bit about what they do and explain the businesses just as a first off. So Christian, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So great to be here, everyone. Again, my name's Christian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Audiomob, and we invented in-game audio advertising. We are able to deliver audio ads to gamers so that they can listen to that ad rather than being blocked by video. An example, let's say you're driving the car in a mobile game, you crash the car, usually you get blocked by a video ad. Well, now an audio ad can play out of the car's radio and the person can continue playing the game. We reach over 1.5 billion players, have investors such as Lightspeed Ventures, Google, Sequoia, and Atomico, and 3 offices in Abu Dhabi, London, and New York.
Jaime, take it away.
Yeah. Well, my name is Jaime. I'm co-founder at Voicemod. At Voicemod, what we do essentially is we enable people to express themselves through sound with AI technology. So essentially, Voicemod fosters between groups of people that are usually under a gaming experience. So usually are small groups of people that are playing the same video game. They use Voicemod to really amplify the way they communicate through the voice chat or through the video chat. We have more than 40 million downloads. We are available now for Windows and Mac, and we will soon be able also on mobile.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of step back a bit because we've, heard a lot about AI at today and at this conference. So I wondered how the developments in AI have impacted your businesses and aided what you guys do. So Christian, maybe.
Yeah, sure. So at our core, we are an advertising and audio gaming business, right? We're not at our core an AI business. However, AI impacts in a very real way every single thing we do, to the point where we opened up an R&D lab in the Middle East, and we have dozens of engineers working on all kinds of crazy stuff. But an example is, in advertising, everyone is very privacy conscious these days, right? And they do not want to share their personal data, which makes users harder to target, and it makes it harder for the ads to be relevant. So you can use AI to create predictive models, for instance, so that the users can still use their games and have their in-app experiences, but be served relevant content without using their personal data. So there's a lot of machine learning that has gone into creating these predictive models so that we can send better content to users at a more relevant time. There's dozens of other applications, which I'm sure I'll touch upon later on, but that is certainly a key investment area of ours.
Absolutely. And Jaime?
Yeah, in our side, of course, it affects the most fundamental thing that we develop in terms of technology at our company, that is the voice modification. So the company was born in 2014, so we've been developing audio technology for almost 10 years now. And we've been developing always technology that worked in real time. So the fact that now we can run models of AI in 20, 50 milliseconds and do this voice conversion via AI models, it really changed dramatically the way the users can express themselves. So it's really affecting the most fundamental part of the business. But as Christian said, this is really affecting the whole company at all the level of productivity. So for example, I'm not directly working every day on building the technology, but AI is also affecting the way I work every single day.
Absolutely. I'm super curious about why you think audio is such a powerful medium, and I guess how brands can be using it better, in what they do. So why do you think audio is so powerful?
So without question, categorically, audio is a very, very powerful medium that brands should be and are using, especially at Audiomob. and certain things aren't even discovered yet. So I think this might be the first time in public I've described this algorithm that we've patented, and we're the only people in the world to do this. So it's called audio intent signaling. So if you're playing a game, you're really, really engaged in the game. Let's say you're racing a car, like the previous example, and you're trying to win the race, right? It means you're engaged. You are trying to navigate through that game. Now, if the user, for instance, decides to click on the car radio for a boost, and an audio ad starts coming in and playing out of the car's radio, maybe the user decides to listen to all of the ad. Maybe they decide to not mute the ad. Maybe they decide to click through. The user was playing the game at a very engaged level, but then they showed more engagement with the ad. The delta here is the highest form of engagement that you could possibly get within our user base. And as a result, our average brand lift studies are 300 to 400%, 300 to 400% brand lift increase. Our CTR has increased by 2,000 to 4,000%. And yes, these numbers sound pretty insane, but you can go on the website and check them out. The point is that when you analyze a user based on how they listen to something, and then you target them with very relevant content, the uplift you get is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the reasons Google invested. And this algorithm, called the audio intent algorithm, you bet that we're obviously investing a lot in our machine learning around this algo, so it constantly improves year on year. And that is one of the most powerful forms of audio that we've seen at the company. And again, all the data points haven't even been discovered yet in terms of how we can target users in this way to send them more effective content without intruding on their experience. So yeah, absolutely.
It's super interesting, yeah.
It's great.
That's fascinating. And it's interesting because it's completely a different way. What we saw in Voicemod, for example, we are more focused on audio as a communication piece. So in Voicemod, what we think that this relationship with brands and people creates is one of the most fundamental feelings that everyone is looking for, that is the sense of belonging. So when I'm with my group of friends, and we all love this TV series, or we all love this movie, or we all love this brand that really connects us. We are noticing that people is more likely to use, for example, on a soundboard, a sound to say hi to their friends. If this sound comes from a TV show that I know you like, this type of communication creates a different sense of belonging and bonding between friends. So brands, in my opinion, have a great opportunity to introduce this kind of pieces of audio in daily communication of friends, because they create, in one hand, they create this sense of belonging, and on the other hand, they create the excitement of the users for the new content that is coming, because I want to use this new content with my friends, and I want to be the first one in the group to do it, because that way I will stand out from the rest of the group. So it's really interesting, those relationships between brands and communication, what we see.
Yeah, I imagine that's kind of what creates the network effect a bit in what you do, because it's sort of like people speak to other people about it, and it's
yeah, exactly.
Kind of, bridges stuff. And then kind of looking forward, I mean, Christian, you talked a little bit about what you're developing in-house. I wondered whether we could get a sneak peek at anything else. What's going on in the R&D lab?
So I can't obviously tell all of our multi-million-dollar secrets, right? But we are working on some very interesting things. So if you think about the fact that when you are playing a game and you're delivered an ad, and sometimes there is a banner, a clickable banner with the audio ad, so that there's a call to action. Think of those banners not as audio ad slots. Think of them as content delivery slots. Now, one of the hypotheses that we had, this was back in 2020 when we launched the business, worst year to launch a business, by the way, but it's worked out so far, is that if you take, let's say, a company like Spotify, great company, pretty much everyone's downloaded it, hundreds and hundreds of millions of active users, and they make a substantial amount of their revenue through serving audio ads to said listeners, said users. Now, if you were to take one large gaming studio, it could produce the equivalent in terms of the amount of audio ad impressions, audio ad spots to Spotify. Then if you take into consideration that there's over roughly 39,000 games, and there's hundreds of games that could also provide the equivalent amount of impressions to Spotify. What you have here is potentially a next generation distribution system for audio through gaming. So we don't think about the slots that we're creating, the integrations that we make with these game developers as audio ad slots. We think about them as content delivery slots. So this is one of the biggest areas that we're working on, because we do believe gaming is going to be the biggest channel in order to discover audio content. This is from music, messaging, could be government messaging. There's a lot of interesting conversations going on there. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of our big bets.
Yeah, and Jaime, in terms of like product, like is there anything like cool that you've kind of had developed in-house that you want to talk about, or like things that you're looking to the future to do?
Yeah, I mean, things that I can share. Obviously, we are working always in a continuous way on making our algorithms more robust, faster, and being able to train the models with less data. So this is like a curve that is growing, and then so the algorithms that we have today versus the ones that we had 6 months ago, they are completely different. So the speed is something that I never seen before in technology. Now everything is going really, really fast, and we also have this challenge of saying, okay, what is the version of the technology that I'm going to release to the users? Because I know 1 month from now we will have better technology, but at the same time we are with this trade-off, or I want the users to have always the best experience, but I don't want to miss the shot of having this technology in the market versus waiting for 1 month. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Then we've been investing a lot on where the piece of audio that I think is the most iconic, and you probably will agree with me, is music. So music is really something that moves people in a way that probably not many things in the life does. Probably love and some other things, but music is something that can really connect with humans in a very special way. All of these things that I talked about, communication and belonging, all of that is also part of music. But music has so much things add to it. It's all about expression, it's all about feelings, it's all about many other things. So we are constantly exploring technologies related with music and AI that could help people find different ways of expression, find different ways of communication. We already put some POCs in the market, so you can try our text-to-song feature, for example. So you can type a text, and it will create a song based on a style and a singer that you will choose. This is obviously a very early stage product, but we are definitely evolving and looking for how we can apply this technology and others that we are developing for our users to create pieces of music.
That's very cool. And like when the tech and the market is moving so fast, I wondered like how you stay on top of that in the business. Like do you kind of listen to what clients are asking for, or is it kind of like how do you stay ahead of the curve, I guess, is the question.
I think the key for this, and probably Christian will agree with me, is the team. So be surrounded by the best team is always the key for success. So I wouldn't have time to really be on the ahead of the curve all the time. I wouldn't have time to be reading everything that is out. But I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by great people that is able to filter and to really post. For example, for us, it's really, really useful these Slack channels that we have dedicated to topics. So we have one channel, for example, that is AI news. AI news for us is everything related with AI, which is kind of part of our industry, but more verticalized on audio or music or something that is, or gaming, something that is really touching our business. So that's probably the biggest source for me. Then, of course, for me, Twitter or X or whatever we want to call it is also. And I would say, last but not least, which is also a piece of audio, is podcast. So podcasting is really helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah, for us, and I completely agree with you, having great people to work around you, to keep you up to date is absolutely essential. And I guess the point I'll add to that is the foundations, like where are those people working, what divisions are they working in? Now, I guess a bit of a backstory is before I started Audiomob, I was a science partner at Facebook, so that's measuring the true value of ads and how people are influenced along a kind of a conversion funnel, so they get the most relevant content at each point. And before that, I was managing $100 million at Google, increasing ad returns for very large clients. And at both companies, I learned a phenomenal amount in terms of why does Google have an R&D lab called Google X? Why does Facebook have reality labs? Amazon, Apple, etc. And one thing I thought of back then is, if I was to ever start a company, I'll definitely put R&D at the front of the roadmap rather than opening up an R&D lab after your IPO will do a late stage growth round. So what we did is we opened up an R&D lab in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, for those of you that don't know, a massive gaming hub. And we got onto a program called 2454 that supports companies all over the world in order to move out there. So we have an engineering lab and an R&D lab. And the innovations that are coming out of this lab, and again, I don't want to be a teaser or anything, but I really can't say, but it is incredible. Like the kind of innovations that we're, I can't tell you, but the kind of innovations that are coming out of that lab are absolutely incredible. I mean, Audiomob, we did invent the medium of in-game audio advertising, and to stay ahead of the medium, you need to constantly be at the forefront of innovation. So rather than concentrating on your core product roadmap and your core revenue, you segment out another department to concentrate on what the 8 to 10 years looks like. Because we're not targeting, to become $1 billion company. We're trying to think, how are we going to get to $20 billion? And you need years and years of innovation in a roadmap, but segmented outside of the business so it doesn't get too distracting.
Yeah.
So that is a really big investment area. And applied artificial intelligence is our biggest bet, but it is absolutely keeping me up to date. I'm kind of jealous of my co-founder and CTO that he gets to work in that lab all the time, but I'm flying around the world. But then again, I get to conferences like this, right? But yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah, we see something similar because of course we have our R&D audio lab, what we call, and I think what is fair to say here is that not every single thing. Some things are at dead ends. So we've been finding a lot of dead ends on this time because since, for example, we started to invest in voice conversion real-time models in 2018. And we were pursuing different papers and different strategies to really get to this 20, 50 milliseconds. And some of them were simply dead ends. We just work on that for a couple of quarters, 3 quarters, and it was a nonsense following up because it was not going to work. So I think what is important to be ahead of the curve is also try, learn, fail, and iterate within that lab space. Because on the business side, you probably are less allowed to fail that big time. So you can still fail and learn. But on these R&D environments, things could go really wrong to eventually go really well.
Okay. I guess with that in mind, what keeps you guys up at night?
What keeps me awake at night?
Yeah.
A lot of things. I mean, one of the things that keep me awake at night is the speed of the sector. We were briefly talking about this. The speed of all the developments, regulations, and how this is gonna fit. We are basically on a time that us as founders we have to be responsible, and companies have to self-care because regulation will come eventually, but governments are slower than technology. That's a reality. So this is one of the things that keep me more awake at night. The things on how to do things right, and at the same time keeping the competitors and the speed at the same pace, because it's kind of a balance that you have to find between those worlds. I would say that's the main thing that keeps me awake at night as of today.
And for me, it would be, outside of the many flights I have to go on these days, is as Audiomob are the creators and thought leaders in the space, usually when a space has exponential growth, you get a lot of competitors moving in. And the kind of growth, we're running the numbers at the beginning of this quarter, the amount of game developers that we have, 83x compared to last year. So that kind of growth, gets noticed no matter how much we try and keep it quiet. And lots of bigger competitors start entering the space. Now, the way that they enter may or may not be questionable. However, we have to prepare for the best case scenarios and the worst case scenarios. And we start thinking of the in-game audio ad industry as custodians. So rather than being the person that's trying to get, first mover advantage, which we obviously have, and trying to get as much market share as possible, we actually think about, okay, how can we actually help some of our competitors really enter the space in the best possible way? Sometimes you could do this with, patenting your technologies, which we have, to make sure that the best practices are used. Sometimes it's teaming up with industry bodies like the IAB, for instance, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, to create a standard. So all of these things are things that I constantly think about. So rather than Audiomob, how much market share we can get, it's Audiomob and then everyone else, how can we grow the whole addressable market together? And that's a much, much more complex thought process. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then just looking to the future, I'd be interested to hear I guess maybe 2 or 3 predictions from each of you for kind of the audio and advertising space. So yeah. So
one of them I've mentioned already, which I really believe that gaming and mobile apps in general are going to be the #1 source for discovering and consuming audio content. From investments, companies entering the space, growth numbers that I'm seeing around gaming and apps, I think it's, once you see the data, it's a very obvious inevitability. I do think that the progression of artificial intelligence over the last 5 years has been phenomenal. So for instance, let's take voice cloning, which I'm sure you all know about. The commercial model that's going to unlock for people is insane in terms of being able to perfectly clone your voice using an AI and then licensing your voice for various reasons. Now, we actually thought about this 5 years ago, but in the last 2 years roughly, there have been massive advancements in terms of cloning an inflection. So you can actually get some sense of tonality rather than that clear robotic voice. And year, it's very scary, some of the stuff that we're seeing, in a good way, by the way. And yeah, I definitely think that commercial model that's going to arise from that could easily be a $10, $20 billion industry within the next 5 years, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting.
For me, it will be about, first of all, customization. So one of the things that AI can bring is they create completely tailored experience for the single user. So I believe that in the near future, we will have experiences that will be created only for us, only for our taste, for our mood, for our position in the world, for our daytime, exactly for that moment, for that persona. So I think AI is able to bring that, and that is going to be really powerful at many different levels. The other thing which I don't think necessarily is a prediction, because it's probably an evolution of what we are already seeing. And the other thing is about on all of these audio artists, mainly could think of musicians, but we can think of voiceover actors, or we can think of different jobs that we have in the audio industry. I believe that the interaction between fans and creators is going to be way bigger. So now what we are seeing is that audiences, so in my generation, I as an audience, I wanted to see the singer. I wanted to see the band. today's generations, they want to co-create with them, or they want even to take their piece and create their own mix of that piece. So I believe that those relationships that were single direction in the past, now we're gonna start seeing more and more how those relationships go both directions. And even the artist will take some remix from one user and they will make it for them, and they will maybe play the remix coming from the user. So this is almost a never-ending cycle, which I think is really interesting, because one of the good things about this Gen AI trend is that basically superpower everyone to be a creator. So democratize the way people create, not only in the audio space, but on many different industries and specialities. So I would say that's both of them for me. So customization and interaction.
Yeah, super interesting. I feel like it's kind of going to make things sort of hyper localized to what people want. Cool. And what are your clients asking for at the moment? Like, what's the one thing that they're sort of clamoring for, that it's like, that maybe the innovation's not happening fast enough in that area, or things haven't been cleared, or yeah.
So I remember I was going to a conference called DMS, hosted by Luma Partners, a very large M&A company in the advertising space. And the stats that they were giving there kind of replicates what clients have been telling me, which is, when it comes to executing an advertising campaign, that's one part of the process. But then there is the process around getting the creative. And often, whether it's from an ideation, creative execution standpoint, quality standpoint, whatever it is, the creative takes a long time, and that often disrupts the campaign. It's to the point where 90% of investments around this area, in terms of increasing campaign revenue, is actually going towards the creative process. So something we actually created recently was called the Audiomob Creative Lab to meet the client's needs, which was, how can I get the creative out quickly? I don't have it. Can you help me out? And it's like, okay, Audiomob Creative Lab, and we'll take care of absolutely everything. And we actually leverage AI massively to speed up the creation, from generating the scripts to generating the audio creatives, implementing them into demos, giving them to the clients, etc. So yeah, everything has been around the creative. How can we speed up the process in terms of the ideation process, the quality of the creative, and the deployment of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, speed is king, I think.
Yeah.
Jaime.
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty sure some of you saw it. It's been really viral in the last days. So this video of an AI that basically translates whatever video that you upload to them, and even do the lip sync around it. So you can do it. So I look at these kind of technologies and think, okay, because at Voicemod we are always thinking on how we can do this real time. So how we can take this, and instead of taking a video and upload it to a server and waiting for a couple of hours to have the model, the way our technology works is we try to do things to foster real-time communications, as we are having to right now. So this is probably something that will eventually happen I don't know when, but probably nearer than we think. So imagine that can be real time, or almost real time. So let's put a second of buffer, and you can have a perfect Japanese conversation with the Japanese people. I'm speaking in my perfect native Spanish. That would be absolutely mind-blowing.
It would be mad, yeah. And on that note, we've run out of time. Thank you guys so much. It's super interesting.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.